Right. And the recording has started. So let's start now. And so hello everybody from the comfort of your digital devices. Thank you for joining this session at your own time. Again, this is asynchronous to fit everybody's schedule. So welcome to the first official session of this capstone project of this workshop for pre-service student teachers in Hong Kong universities. And again, our topic is inclusivity, both for our future students and for ourselves as pre-service student teachers who are going to teach or have experience in Hong Kong. So under all the documents and all the resources, you will see my legal name, my university name as Liao Vic. Though in the workshop, I'll say it later that I would like to be nicknamed Will so that it's a little bit special when we're talking together in this workshop group. All right. So I do have a section on Padlet for this later that I would like to get to know everyone. So I'm going to ask to break the ice so that everyone is to know. So firstly, what's your name or your nickname? What do you want us in the group to call you? Next, maybe you can tell us your major, your degree, or which university you are in. If you are joining from other places, I'm hosting from EdUHK. And if you're joining from elsewhere, please remember that you are welcomed here. And we really do appreciate your participation. We really do want to hear from you as well as your own experiences. Maybe you haven't taught in Hong Kong yet, or you only have a certain kind of teaching experience. Maybe it isn't tuition, maybe it isn't in a class, maybe it's just helping your friend do some homework. All experiences are welcome. Please share. And one fun fact, maybe something that you like or something that you don't like, something that can help us remember you. So you can take your time to answer them in the Padlet. I'll go first. So again, I would like to be called Will. I am an English teaching double degree student. I am an undergraduate student in their final year. And I am from EdUHK, as you can see from the icon here. And I have experience in Hong Kong, in Myanmar, specifically Yangon. And I've also been to Toronto because in the English double degree program, you get to go on an outside trip and immersion trip to go someplace and speak English every day. So for us, we got to go to Toronto. And the fun fact about it is that I don't like and use both names for and again, please feel free to share your introduction in the past. And so I'll start the visual section here. So the title we use for ourselves here is inclusion as and for. Even if the capstone title is very long and for us, we will focus on inclusion as a teacher who will serve other people and for ourselves. How are we included in the school we are in the field we are in? So here's the first prompt, as it will, that I'd like to start discussion with and thinking with. So first is the first word, inclusivity. What do you know about it? Maybe you're new to it or you just want to learn more about it. Feel free to share what do you know right now starting the workshop. Remember your thoughts about inclusivity or inclusion, and then think about students' needs. Like, what are some? How are students included? How can you include students' needs in your teaching. Maybe you can name a type of need or a type of way you can help the student with this need. So let's keep those in our minds, the students' needs to include. Now let's think about teachers' needs, like ourselves as maybe teachers or maybe just young teachers or just people who are in the school. What are your needs? Like maybe you need help with getting to the school. Maybe it's the transport fee, the bus fees, or taxi needs. Maybe it is that you need help with food or you need help with all your teaching resources. Maybe you need help with like talking, or you need a mentor, or you need your department. They can be very simple, like getting to the school or what you need at the school to teach. Or maybe they can be bigger things. Like, for example, one teacher's need can be that I need water, but also I need water in my classroom. I need to drink water while I am teaching. For some, it might be awkward, but for me, for example, that's a need. So what are some of your needs? So you can share those as you like. And while we have all those three things, inclusivity, students' needs, and teachers' needs, in the prompt, I want to focus on teachers' needs. In your experience, were you treated well with your needs? Were you able to get to school on time every day? Or what made it difficult to get to school every day? Or maybe you needed something or you wanted something, but it's not there. Or you asked for something and they gave it to you or they helped you to get it. I'd like you to think about those experiences and if you were treated well, if you got help to get your needs. So think about that. They don't always have to be a good need or a bad need or a really weird need or a simple need. Sometimes a place can help you with some needs and not all. Feel free to think about that. And if you'd like, we can share that. But again, you are not forced to, you are only like asked to. And please just share what you are comfortable with sharing as of now. Okay. So at this point in the video, maybe you have paused. Maybe you need to come back to this video later. Again, that is a type of need. Doesn't have to be a teacher or student need. It's just a need. So I am about to continue the session. If you need to pause or come back later, feel free. If you need more time to type in the responses or you're typing in the comments or in the Padlet, feel free. Okay. And I'm about to continue right now. So I'll give some of my examples with both inclusivity, students' needs, and then go to my needs as a teacher in that place. So this is me recounting my experience in an internship at a hidden name. Let's call it SKHJCYNSSSS for secondary school. And this was in Hong Kong while I was doing a field experience. This was around 3 months where I am to teach English on my own to a class with a lot of support, but in the class, I am practically on my own in teaching. So, for example, you can look at this picture of how I dressed at that school. You know, you can have whatever thoughts you have about me. Think about like, what does that say about me as a young teacher? Or what kind of needs do you think that this student teacher might have? You feel free to have whatever thoughts you have. And again, you can share them if you'd like. I am not scared of judgment. So here I am dressed like this, looking like this at the imaginary school SKHJCYN secondary. And here I am trying to cater to my students' needs. For me, I found out that many, or rather a majority, they knew some basic English words, but the school curriculum wanted them to be able to write a lot on their own or to remember more content items more so. But the school gave us more leniency. I say they were a bit flexible. They knew that because some students needed more time to learn a word, to practice a word a lot of times, so we could be slower with the curriculum. We could slow down some teaching items. We could make our own activities. So for me, trying to meet my students' needs, which is going from the Chinese written word to English, or using a specific kind of accent or very slow speech in English. That was me trying to meet my students' needs to include anyone who is maybe very low fluency, maybe very beginner, as well as the people who felt as fluent as the teacher themselves. And I tried to make it quite fun and engaging. I tried to make sure it was both a balance of thinking or fun or like specific kind of fun that lets you learn, as well as be able to connect the Chinese to the English. So if you see here, there's that backwards riddle. They had to learn this word called backwards because it was a big point in their book that they would change a word from and spell it backwards. So for me, I pretended like I had no idea if I was writing the words for forwards and back correctly in Chinese. One student then came to the white blackboard, and they corrected it for me. So that was how I could introduce the idea of a word being backward. If they didn't get it in English, they could get it in Chinese. Then you could also see this big picture of like caught, silver, Alfie, Mr. Hoppy. For copyright reasons, I'll let you guess what the book was. And using some words, using the names of the characters, I asked them to remember and practice the other vocabulary from a different topic. So you can see Mr. Hoppy, H for hall, P for indoor playground, O for outdoor playground. Or maybe over here we have S for science room, or L here, silver, the L for library, and so on. And at some point, I found that some students needed time with behavior management, or rather that I found that some couldn't keep attention for very long, or they had trouble with their own classmates. So for me, I tried to pick up Chinese on my own. I still let them know that I was the person who needed help with Chinese. So I used English to do that. And in reverse, they teach me Chinese in kind if I teach them English. So I'll translate this roughly that if you do not pay attention, then you may not learn, then you don't know how to do it. And then maybe you don't respect, or you don't, the way I try to say it is that if you don't respect the classmate who doesn't know how to do it, if you don't respect the teacher who's trying to help you, like if the teacher doesn't know what to do, of course you may not respect them. If the classmate doesn't know what to do, maybe you don't like them or you're angry at them, you don't respect them. So for me, I try to use Chinese to write it down, but I had to use English to say what I meant. So I was saying a much simpler version of what I described just now, that if I feel like classmates don't respect each other, they may not pay attention to each other, they may not notice that, oh, they feel bad or they really do need help with English. And that might worry them, that might make them feel bad. So no one learns, no one knows how to do anything, and so on. So for me, I try to show that I will include students who don't feel like they're respected in class, or even still include the students who feel angry at a classmate or angry at a teacher. That was my way of trying to include students. Of course, if you have comments on that or you think I could do something different, feel free to share. Again, I am not afraid of judgment. But you can see that just by how much I talked about including my students, I probably neglected myself. So even when I was trying to appeal to students' Chinese home language and trying to connect that as much as I can, trying to make like more scaffolding activities so those who really struggle can at least remember things or at least recall it better and be able to connect words. Perhaps I was not very connected to the school culture. As I stated again, I had to pick up Chinese or use a translator very often. And in a school, especially if it was in Hong Kong, one of the more urban, more of the more rural areas, when they don't really know how to communicate with me very well, and I don't know how to communicate with them very well without a translator, it can feel hard to feel like you're included just by language issue, by language barrier. That makes one issue. Another thing I felt is that, again, you saw the way I dressed. I was probably not very conventional, someone who sounds like a woman, probably talks like a woman, acts like a woman, dressing like a teenage boy. Probably, despite fitting the dress code just enough, they probably are going to get some weird looks, aren't they? So for a while, I was getting some odd looks. Some people were wondering, oh, are you a man or a woman? And I didn't entirely know how to answer without getting in trouble. So that was another way I felt like not fully included. As I felt that so long as I could, you know, do the job of sharing the textbook items or marking the homework or talking to them in English, even if by 90% of the time I was doing enough to be accepted in the school as a teacher, as an English student teacher. Probably not fully accepted as whatever this person looks like in a somewhat rural, somewhat semi-urban area, but I was accepted enough. And for me, I felt like I was okay enough to do my work of including the students in my English classes. Even though I thought I was okay, some students clearly saw that I was not okay. They could feel that I was stressed. They could feel that I was worried, and it got to a point where one time I admitted to them or to some students who actually asked that the words I said were that I don't get paid like a full-time teacher. I told them I was a university student, and so I don't get paid like a full-time teacher. But they saw how much work I was trying to do for the students, how the activities I did were not the same as some other English teachers of the same year. And so they drew me this comic as a gift after school. So that was one example of me trying to talk about inclusivity, student teachers, and teachers' need, all within one kind of example. So of course, when my example, I could talk very long about that. Feel free to not talk that much if you don't feel comfortable. On the other hand, if you want to talk at length about that, or you want to share a lot, do feel free. And if you don't want to do it in the Padlet or the YouTube comments or any of the workshop group items, feel free to send it to me individually if you want someone to listen to you. Okay, so this is the end of my example. In a synchronous session, I would have put a pause here. So if you need a break, feel free to pause, feel free to come back later, feel free to wind back in the past parts of the video. For now, I am going to move on to the second discussion prompt, and that's going to be a lead-in from the kinds of experiences we had with teachers' needs and whether we were met with them. So prompt 2 has to do more with the idea of what it means to include, or the ideas of what inclusion may not be. So in the prompt itself, you would see just these 3 words: assimilate, integrate, and include. Feel free to take out any translator or search engine or dictionary to look up more of these words. For the sake of the video, I'm going to try and describe it very briefly. Assimilate is as if you are trying to change your appearance or a lot of your actions so that you fit in a social group. So you change a lot to fit in the social group that already has a lot of rules, unspoken, spoken. You change the most. Integrate is more of the middle, I feel. The group changes some rules, you change some actions or some things of how you look, and you both meet in the middle. The social group and you are together. My example was that I felt accepted enough in the school I was at, and I changed some of the things I would do. I didn't say some of the words I normally would say, and the school itself, a lot of the staff, a lot of my mentors changed the way they would talk, or they allowed a lot of flexibility. They allowed me a lot of choice for me to do some things differently, and we meet in the middle. That would be integrate. I integrate into the group, not having to change that much. And then include, the word that feels the most ideal, I think. Just simply that more rules are changed in the social group, and the person arguably may not have to do that much. In some examples I've seen in real life, in some theoretical items, that inclusion in a social group, to include someone, there would have to be very few rules or just very general rules. So they would have to be rules that almost everybody or everybody they want in the group could do. For example, maybe the school includes people who have Cantonese as a main language, or Mandarin, or English, or Urdu. They try to include them by making some rules very flexible. And so any student or any teacher with any main language can be included. That is how I understand all three words. But again, if you think of the words differently, please do feel free to share. After you've thought about the words themselves, you can think about the differences in students assimilating, students integrating, students being included in a school. You can think of the difference of students being in the social group of the school. Then you can think about you as a teacher being included in the social group. Teachers integrating or assimilating or being included within the school. You can think very generally, you can think with examples, you can think with experiences of your own. And again, feel free to share as much or as little as you want. I will have a moment of silence so that people can pause, people can think. And once again, maybe you think assimilate is a bit different to how I think of it. Maybe you think include or inclusion is different to what I said earlier in the video. Or maybe you want to share an experience of you as a student integrating into a group, or you as a teacher integrating into a group. Feel free to think about the differences. Feel free to think about the ways that you experienced both or neither. Think of how your past student or your future student might assimilate or integrate or include. Everything and anything you think about, that is all welcome. And anything and everything you want to share is right there for you. For the sake of the video, I will move on to the next part. Feel free to pause here and wind back if you need to. So from all the thoughts you had, from all the memories that might have happened when you were thinking about all this, I firstly, am a bit sorry because already when one says assimilate or to fit in, to say it politely, um, some people might feel really anxious or sad. Like already the experience or the memories of needing to change up a bit for a social group or to get used to a new social group, that already is a little worrying. For some, that's already scary. So firstly, if you felt a lot of bad feelings from thinking about it, from remembering it, take as much time as you need to collect yourself, to calm down a bit, to even stop the video here and come back a different time, think about this a different time. Already all the bad feelings that come with assimilating or integrating into a social group is tough. And especially when you're a student and you're expected to, that already has a lot of bad memories. And if you need any time with it or you'd like support with it, I'm quite sure that because almost all of us have that kind of experience, that almost all of us are going to understand what you went through, that will empathize and will care for your feelings, care for your thoughts. And once again, you will not be judged for like not wanting to share or sharing something that maybe someone doesn't agree with, because I think all of us can understand that it's a tough experience, it's a tough memory, and already the idea of going to like this ideal of inclusion, this is already quite, it's hard for some people to think about, and it's also hard for some people to get to if they try at all. In fact, when I was talking about my experience, um, it was only easier for me because I had to practice talking about it a lot. I have to distance myself from that memory. I have to like block myself off of some things. Otherwise, I might start going down a really bad spiral. So again, take as much time as you need to think about it, or even a lot of time to not think about it and then come back to it later. In fact, this will be something I bring up in a lot of later sessions, that all of this takes time. All of this takes some sense of like bravery too. So especially if you want to share, can be later on in the sessions or as soon as you want. Already that's quite a big step, quite a really big step that we appreciate from everyone here. Okay. So that in itself was a bit of an introduction. So session one was me trying to introduce the ideas, and a lot of the theory or like thoughts about what inclusion could be in school, a lot of writers have come up with. The main ideas I've come up with are from a 2003 journal and from one of the long papers from my own supervisor. In fact, he was one of the people who inspired me that inclusion in school, even if it's hard, it's something that can happen, even though it comes with like bad memories, bad experiences, it is something that can happen. So I understand if someone else in this group may not feel as like hopeful about this, or maybe you're also a bit pessimistic about this. Sometimes I have to get through my bad thoughts that sometimes inclusion may not happen, but that's the point of this group. We are trying to think about this, think about, have we felt it before, or have we felt something close to inclusion? Have we ever gotten through like what I see is a 3-point step, I argue. Just a very summarized idea that I think we go from 1, 2, 3 sometimes, maybe not in our lifetime or not all at once. But the point of this group is to see for us, is it possible for us to be included as young teachers in Hong Kong? Is it possible then for us as teachers who are included or not to be able to include our students? So you can keep that in mind as you go about the rest of the workshop. You can think about that as you answer the next questions or the discussion prompts. All ideas, once again, are welcome. And again, you don't have to be all that hopeful about it, and all ideas are welcome. In fact, the fact that you have thought about it and you have chosen to share with the group, that is already a really big thing, and we thank you a lot for it. So for now, that will be the end of this first introduction session. And later on, maybe doesn't have to be immediately, doesn't have to be in this session's comments. You can always tell me later on about how the asynchronous or the synchronous sessions go. Is there enough time to pause? Is there a good enough pacing? Do you feel like you want the process of it to change? Or what items can be changed? For me, I've tried to keep it very general of like discussion prompt, example, another discussion prompt for everybody. And if you want a change, feel free to suggest that in the Padlet, or you can contact me directly through the email. And for now, I'll end the session here. In the other slides, I do have additional things that I will bring up in the group later. Because when I brought up the session 1 time slots for specifically the week of the 12th and the 17th of January, at the time of recording, which is the 15th of January, I had not heard back from anyone that they can join. And the people that have asked about it, they were unfortunately, they couldn't agree on a schedule together. That is why, at least for 15, 16, 17 January, I have chosen to do them asynchronously. That is why that everyone is watching this on their own time through YouTube, through the Padlet. I do invite people to reach out if they can, possibly on 17th January and possibly for the 19th and 24th of January. The yellow time slots here are the ones where anyone can join in. And they don't necessarily have to be only 1 hour long or maybe 2 hours. Again, this is flexible as the asynchronous time slots again. And almost all the information will be on the Padlet. I also am taking suggestions on changing the way that this group is organized as well. And again, you can make comments at any time. You will find almost everything under specific subtopics. For example, later on, you would have seen the video in session 1 along with the discussion prompts. Maybe you see the scheduling here with the most recent one up here or the most upcoming. You would also see a very general one down here, the one for 19th to 24th January here. And again, I am taking feedback on almost everything about this workshop. Anything that feels uncomfortable or not as convenient, feel free to change it. Feel free to ask for changes. And the last thing, again, is stated on the Padlet that by the 2nd of March, I do need everything, unfortunately. And again, everything is going to be as flexible as I can make it. That's why I'm going to reach out to people, maybe not as close to 2nd of March, just so I can get confirmations. So again, that would include the 2 surveys before the sessions and then after the main sessions, and then individual presentation videos. And again, I can get more information about that, but they are meant to be very flexible and creative, and I will talk more about that in the later sessions. The first survey is already down here. You have to scroll down a lot, and we need this by the 31st of January. And you will also see the information and consent forms. Feel free to download and then upload by however you need to, by whichever means you can. This can also include just leaving the link down here in the comments of the Padlet or whatever system we choose later on. Okay. So for now, that does it for the first session and all the housekeeping items. And again, I'll be very happy to hear everyone's feedback and everyone's suggestions for the next session. Until then, I will guess that the second session will happen online by every asynchronous method. But again, I'm happy to be proven otherwise if people find out that they are free sometime this week. So thank you again for joining. I've been Will, or as you will know me by the legal name, I've been Will. This has been the first session, and I'm happy to have you all here. Thank you all for your time. See you soon.